Thanks everybody for coming today. Really delighted today to introduce you to a fellow industry marketing professional whose career I highly admire and also am pleased to say is a great exemplary customer of XPON. Elaine Herlihy, Chief Marketing and Product Officer of OFX.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, Elaine.
Pleasure.
I thought since rather than hear from me as target demographic and also as one of the executive team that we could bring somebody on board to just kind of unpack some of the things that excite both of us about where we are in the industry today and how the profession has evolved. So for those of you who haven't done any LinkedIn stalking of Elaine like I have, Elaine has been with OFX for a few years now, but has previous experiences in exec level at PayPal, BT, Westpac, and others. Now, early in your career, I saw Marcoms to start. So tell me, what would you say were some of the hallmarks of the profession when you started?
Well, I started probably a longer time ago than I would like to admit, but I think, what I saw in marketing at that time was you just had a different focus and probably a different approach. I think many companies really looked at marketing, say even 15 years ago, as the creative department and advertising, marketing communications being the hallmarks of how people got out to market. And then you had the advent of customer relationship management, which is how do you develop that one-to-one kind of relationship and try and strengthen your client base and retain them. Marketing departments when I, even as I said, 10, 15 years ago, and I started my career earlier, were quite segregated. So you had brand and marketing in one place, you had sponsorships, CRM, digital advertising came into its fore when I was at Westpac, which is, probably 10 years ago now, and that idea. But they were quite separate strings on the same necklace, if you want to think about it like that, but quite separate. And that ability to take learnings from one, customer interaction to another were very limited.
Yep, I felt several of the same things throughout my career as well.
Yes.
And can you briefly describe the OFX business as well for some of the newer folks in the room?
Sure. So OFX is a global money transfers business. We operate in 9 markets. We have offices in 9 markets, rather, worldwide, and we employ 650 people. We're quoted on the ASX. And basically what we do for high-value consumers, small businesses, larger corporates and enterprises, we send foreign exchange and money transfers internationally. So we've been in business, I think, since 1998, so quite a 20-plus odd years.
Yes, fantastic. And so I noticed your experience at OFX is marketing and product. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, I think this came about within the organisation a couple of years ago, really, when the organisation is looking and saying, how do you connect customer journeys? How do you connect that experience? And we are a relatively small organisation from a marketing perspective or a product perspective, so how do you make that experience connected? I look at it and I go, well, one, how do you go to market? What's the proposition that you want to take to market that wins clients? I think that's why all businesses are, what we're all here to do. But you can't distinguish, not that you ever could in my view, but you certainly can't these days given client expectations. You can't distinguish between what you say and what the client experiences, right? So there isn't much point in us putting a bunch of marketing out in market, whether it's digital, whether it's, some more traditional ways of marketing, if we haven't got that product experience lined up at the same time to onboard them, to make sure that they become a new client, to make sure that they become a recurring dealing client, actually. And the more that you can connect those parts of the journey across, whether you call it marketing, whether you call it product or acquisition, retention or activation, those things are really just labels, I think, that can mean different things in different organizations. But unless you can connect the journey, because the expectations are high, unless you can meet the sort of expectations of a client and how you're going to deal with them, and indeed your own internal expectations about the return on your marketing and your product investment, if you can't connect all of those things in the same kind of area, you really, that's a problem, that's a challenge. And the industry is changing at the same time, so you get to do all of this at quite a fast pace.
Yes, very much so. The OFX relationship with XPON precedes me. I've been in the company for a year. Tell me about how OFX started working with XPON in the first place.
Sure. I think it was probably driven by the deprecation of third-party cookies. And I guess, for many organizations who are very sort of dependent on digital marketing as an acquisition and client revenue stream, that was a big deal, right? I mean, because this is the way the industry has organized itself since the internet pretty much came about and Google existed. That idea that you can follow prospects around and then target them, and then attribute that value has been really the mainstay of digital marketing for a long time. But then you had that deprecation come in, and we knew actually, we're heavily dependent on our digital acquisition from a front book perspective. And we thought, well, this wave is forming out there. This tsunami is going to take a lot of players out of market if they're not careful. And we would rather be on top of the wave, frankly, than buried underneath it somewhere. And try to use the industry change as a catalyst for change for ourselves and to really make our marketing and our digital acquisition more effective rather than getting left behind, so to speak. So that was the catalyst for it. At the same time, you have all of these expectations around experience, but also around privacy. And I think that's probably one of the single biggest thing, along with technology, that has changed in the years that I have been in marketing. And the idea that, you have to, collect your own data. And I think for a lot of companies, this idea of first-party data was a bit scary, right? Because you imagine that you could never collect as much first-party data as you were getting access to, from browsers, from other sellers of media, so to speak. But actually, the clients who interact with you in some way are really valuable because they've shown an interest. They're interested in your company. If you can collect the data points around them in a way that they are happy with and that are actually, meeting that level of expectation, both from a regulator as well as from a client perspective, start to collect it, organize it, connect it, which is the most important thing, and then deliver, more targeted messaging to those clients, you're actually using your resources pretty effectively. You're meeting the obligations and the expectations that your clients are expecting of you these days, and you're getting more effectiveness out at the end of the day. And it feels like something that we're very much at the start of as an industry. I don't think this is a one and done piece. I think this is a bit of an ongoing, probably, work for forever. Whatever it looks like. Who knows what it looks like in the metaverse? Haven't figured that one out yet.
Forever with us. We're quite happy to continue helping and watching your success. Yeah. Fantastic. But you've touched on a couple interesting points about these trends, and that there'll be some clear losers from this and the future with first-party data if you don't really get a handle on it. What sort of lesson would you have for others like us in the profession, with those who want to succeed in this future state?
Well, I think, one of the first things we did with XPON, who weren't even called XPON at the time, actually, was to do a good diagnosis of where we were in that digital maturity piece. I think you have to start with that. I think, for us, we have a fairly small marketing team, so we knew that we wanted to find a good partner who could deliver us that ongoing expertise. It's a complex area. There's a lot to it, so getting, to partner with people who are looking around corners on our behalf and actually bringing that expertise to bear into our own team is really important, and things are changing quite quickly. And then just, upskilling our own teams and making sure that they're continuing to grow on top of the platforms and the technology. And, one of the things that we have found is, the streamlining of our data and the ability to actually release productivity on the back of what we do has been really important as well, because things have been quite manual in the past, not so anymore.
Definitely not. Well, we're pleased to see the success that you have brought into OFX story, and that we've been a part of it. So thanks for the incredibly wonderful professional relationship that we have, and for being here with us today.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane.